One of the most famous aviation mysteries shared on the internet is the story of the pilot who landed 35 years after takeoff. It is usually connected to a plane called Pan Am Flight 914. According to the tale, this plane took off in 1955 from New York headed to Miami. It was supposed to be a simple 3-hour flight. Instead, the story claims the aircraft disappeared without a trace, only to magically reappear 35 years later in 1990, landing safely in Caracas, Venezuela. The pilot, still believing it was 1955, reportedly asked confused air traffic controllers where they were and why the airport looked different. After a brief conversation, the legend says he panicked, turned the plane around, and took off again, vanishing forever into the sky. This story has been told in many versions. Some add more dramatic details, others change the year or the airport, and some even claim that government officials tried to hide evidence. The tale is repeated on social media, YouTube videos, magazines, and blogs, as if it were a true paranormal event. Yet, despite how exciting and mysterious it sounds, the entire story is not true, and never happened in real life. To understand why this myth became so widespread, it helps to explore how the story began, what people believed, and how we know the event was invented. Most versions of the legend follow a similar structure. The story begins in July 1955 with a Pan American World Airways Douglas DC-4, full of passengers taking off from New York and preparing for a relaxing trip to Miami. Everything is normal at first. Then, without warning, the plane disappears from radar. Air traffic controllers try contacting the pilot but receive no reply. Search parties are organized, military aircraft are sent out, and ships sweep the coastlines, but nothing is ever found. After many days, the search is officially stopped. The aircraft and its passengers are declared lost. Then, in the dramatic second half of the story, the plane suddenly appears in the sky over Caracas on a clear day in 1990. Controllers at the Venezuelan airport see a mysterious old-fashioned airplane flying in their airspace. They are confused because the aircraft looks like it belongs to the 1950s. When they call the pilot, he tells them his plane is Pan Am Flight 914 from New York and asks why they are contacting him on a strange channel. When they inform him that the date is not 1955 but 1990, the pilot supposedly becomes frightened. Some versions say he shouted that something was wrong and that he didn't understand what had happened. Despite the confusion, he is allowed to land. The moment the plane touches down, ground staff rush toward it. They expect to help the passengers and investigate the strange situation. But according to the tale, the pilot suddenly becomes fearful. He yells that he must leave and takes off again before anyone can reach the aircraft. The plane speeds down the runway and disappears into the clouds. Nobody knows where it goes. Some say it vanished into a time portal. Others claim it returned to 1955. Still others suggest that the government covered up its landing to avoid panic. Afterward, the story claims that airport staff discover old-fashioned objects on the runway, such as a calendar from 1955. These mysterious items are used as proof that the aircraft truly came from the past. This version of events is dramatic, mysterious, and exciting but completely fictional. The entire tale of the plane that landed 35 years late can be traced back to tabloid magazines, not real news sources. The earliest known publication of this story appeared in the Weekly World News, a magazine famous for printing fictional and humorous stories presented as news. This magazine regularly featured articles about aliens, monsters, ghosts, time travel, and impossible events. The story of Pan Am Flight 914 fit perfectly with the type of supernatural entertainment the magazine produced. The first version of the tale appeared in the 1980s. It was printed next to other unbelievable stories, including ones about talking animals and space governments. Over time, the magazine republished the same story several times, changing some details, rewriting parts of it, and adding fake photos to make it seem more dramatic. Because the magazine was not meant to be factual, none of its writers claimed the story was real. It was simply meant to entertain readers. However, as decades passed and the internet grew, the line between fiction and reality blurred. Many people found the story online without knowing the source was a tabloid. They assumed it came from reliable newspapers or historical records. Videos began to appear on YouTube, often adding creepy music and grainy pictures to make the tale feel more mysterious. Social media pages repeated the story and added their own dramatic twists. Many people read or watched these retellings and believed them to be true. But the truth is simple. The story was created as fiction from the beginning. There are many clear reasons why this event could not have happened. These facts show that the story is a myth rather than a real historical incident. Pan American World Airways kept detailed records of all its flights, including incidents, accidents, and missing aircraft. There is no record of a Flight 914 disappearing in 1955. A missing plane with dozens of passengers would have been major news and widely recorded in aviation history. Yet there is nothing. If an aircraft had appeared in another country 35 years after vanishing, aviation agencies, governments, and international investigators would have documented the event. But no aviation authority, American, Venezuelan, or otherwise, has any record of this event happening. Many images shared with this myth were staged or edited. Some came directly from old Weekly World News issues, while others were stock photos of vintage aircraft. None were photographs from an actual incident. Pan Am went bankrupt and shut down shortly after 1991. If a missing Pan Am plane had returned in 1990, it would have made enormous headlines and could have changed the company's public image. No such event took place. Old aircraft cannot simply reappear and take off again without fuel checks, maintenance, or inspection. A plane from 1955 could not fly on modern runways without causing major alerts. More importantly, there is no known natural phenomenon that could make an entire airplane disappear for decades and return intact. The magazine openly described itself as a publisher of fictional stories. It never claimed the story was factual. Its writers were similar to writers of fantasy or science fiction tales. These facts confirm that the tale is completely invented. Even though the story is not true, it remains very popular. There are several reasons why people continue to share it. Humans are naturally curious about time travel. Stories like this allow people to imagine what could happen if time behaved differently, or if an airplane accidentally crossed into another era. Real aviation mysteries, such as missing flights, capture the public's attention. When a plane disappears, people wonder what might have happened. A story about a plane returning decades later taps into that same curiosity. The idea of a plane full of people from the 1950s suddenly appearing in the modern world is charming to many. It creates a dramatic contrast between past and present. This tale has the same structure as classic science fiction and supernatural shows. It feels like a mystery with no clear explanation, which makes it memorable. Because people share stories quickly online, many do not check their origins. A fictional story can easily become an urban legend when repeated thousands of times. The real lesson behind the story, although the tale of the pilot who landed 35 years after takeoff is fiction, it teaches us something useful. It shows how easily people can be convinced by stories that seem factual, especially when they involve mystery, emotion, and dramatic details. It reminds us to question the sources of information, especially when something sounds too strange to be true. It also demonstrates the power of storytelling. Even a made-up event can become legendary if it captures people's imaginations. The story of Pan Am Flight 914 survives not because it is real, but because it is interesting. It mixes mystery, time travel, and human curiosity in a way that makes people want to repeat it. The pilot who landed 35 years after takeoff is one of the most famous aviation legends, but it is entirely fictional. It began as a story in a tabloid magazine known for entertainment, not truth. Over time, it grew into an internet myth, shared by people who did not know its fictional origins. Despite being false, it continues to fascinate readers because it combines themes of mystery, time travel, and unexplained phenomena. In reality, no plane disappeared in 1955 and reappeared in 1990. No pilot asked what year it was, and no aircraft took off again after landing in Venezuela. The tale survives simply as an enjoyable piece of imaginative storytelling. It is a reminder that some stories are popular not because they are factual, but because they spark the imagination and make us wonder about what might be possible, even if it never truly happened.